Hello, you're watching Jazz North Online. I'm John Pope.
And I'm Megan Rowe.
And hey, Megs, what time is it?
Is it that time?
I think it might be that time. It's time for us to take a wander down the musical garden path and head into
Megs Musical
Toolshed.
Woo!
Who have you got in the shed with you this time, Megan?
Well, I feel very lucky to have had Faye MacCalman in the Toolshed this week. We talked for ages about all sorts of things, mainly about the creative process, and it was so nice to see Faye because obviously we've done projects together, we've gigged together, we've bonded together, and John, of course, you're in Archipelago with Faye as well.
That is my musical sister that you're talking about right there. It's been really interesting playing with Faye in Archipelago for a few years now, because when we first started playing, she was, it was very straight acoustic, tenor sax, clarinet. She was an old school instrumentalist of that sort of type, and eventually she just about got interested in buying a delay pedal. She got hold of a delay pedal, and since then the amount of stuff that she brings to gigs has just rocketed. It's been really, really great to watch her discover all of this technology and incorporate it into the way that she makes music.
John,
And,
do you think that maybe you have encouraged this side of Faye in any way?
I choose not to answer that question on the grounds that it may incriminate me. I can't wait to hear this conversation between Megs and Faye MacCalman. Thanks so much for bringing it into us, Megs. Check it out. Here we go.
Hello, Faye.
Hello, Megs. Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about the projects that you're involved with?
Yeah, so I am Faye and I play saxophone, clarinet, and I also sing and write music and I improvise a lot. And generally when I write music, I'm mixing up composing and improvising together. And I'm the band leader of Archipelago. And I play with Frisco as well. And I play with a bunch of other people, John Pope Quintet, I play solo, play in Ponyland, play with whoever. Play with those music stands.
That's brilliant. Okay, so first question is, what is your favourite tool to assist you in making music?
So this is going to sound really millennial, but I think my phone, because I don't have equipment, really. I don't have that much equipment at all. But over the years, what really has helped me is being able to record stuff straight into my phone whenever I have an idea. And also, sometimes if I'm not feeling like very inspired, I will just put a timer on my phone and I'll just improvise for like 10 minutes. And yeah, it was something I heard from Bobby McFerrin. I think it was him saying that he tells his students to improvise for 10 minutes and most people want to stop after 1 minute, but you've got to keep going and kind of trust yourself that there's an idea there. So yeah, for me, my phone is like, I can record into it, I can set timers on it, which gives me I need like structures and stuff to help me be creative. So yeah.
Excellent. I've got loads of those recordings in my phone.
I've got so many.
Yeah, it's mainly sort of and then I'll just not put anything to it. I'll not name it, and it'll just be like voice memo number 176, and nothing happens with it.
Okay, it's so good. Sometimes I go through them and I put a note on it saying do this if I think it's good. So I've got a bunch that say, now it's just the same, but it says voice memo 104, do this. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'll ever get around to this. I think I've got a whole album in my phone. I was actually checking it out last night, which made me feel better about, I mean, in terms of songs that I've got started on there and never recorded or finished. I mean, once imagining that they do then get finished and recorded, that's a whole album. It's a lot more steps that have to happen, but the seed of a whole album is probably there.
The essence.
Yeah.
I like that. And you definitely hear sections of albums where there's one called Voice Memo. Have you ever seen that? And or you know that it's a recording from a practice session. I know Neo has done it, and I think it's called, or sometimes they're called Untitled Number 2 or something like that. And someone's obviously just captured the birth of that idea, and then maybe they play the full song after it.
Oh, that's actually really cool. Well, I saw Angel Bat-Daweed a couple of years ago, and apparently she recorded her first album. It was all formed from like just memos in her phone. I think maybe even some of it was recorded in her phone. I'm not sure. Wow. But I think all the ideas just came out of things she'd recorded in her phone. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, that's great. And
which is basically how I work, thinking about it. Yeah.
Well, it means that you can capture it anywhere, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And exactly. If there was a sound, I know actually Billie Eilish's Billie Eyelash. I always call her Billie Eyelash because someone started it and was like, "Whoa, who you listening to, girls? Billie Eyelash." And now I always say Billie Eyelash. Her brother, and I can't remember his name, but he's a fantastic producer. It might have even been Billy. She collected a recording on her phone of something like when you press a button to cross the road, the crossing, and it goes boo boo, whatever. Yeah. She sampled that and gave it to him, and he made it into a song. Basically, he made it into a beat.
Oh, amazing!
So things like that, you could capture a siren or a car, and then you could manipulate it, then, couldn't you? And make it into something.
I think for me, I wish I was on my phone a bit less, but I do find that it makes my music feel more connected with the world when I can just record anything. Yeah. And it's also the most accessible way for me to be able to record stuff. Because I do actually have a Zoom now, but I only got that a year ago. But before that, I didn't have anything, that I could easily record stuff onto.
Yeah.
And it is also, it means you can be really spontaneous because you can just get your phone quickly and sing something into it.
Yeah.
I sometimes do it when I'm out walking.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I find it quite useful. Say, for example, the other day, I went to see a friend in person outside, which is probably the first person I've seen who is a friend of mine in real life.
Did you faint?
It was just so weird, and he was telling me some song ideas because we're in a band where we do like pop and rock stuff, and he was singing some ideas to me, and I was harmonizing over them. And in that moment, I was like, it's a blooming good job that we all have phones with voice memo, like recording on it, because I could just capture that, and now I can go back to it whenever I need to and put that into Logic or something like that, and it's there. It's always on me, so they are very useful in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
The next question is, and this can be to do with the current situation, or it can just be about how generally over time this has happened. So how has your creative process developed?
Well, I never used to compose actually. Basically because I thought I wasn't very good at it, but I always really loved improvising, and then it took me a while to realise that improvising is a form of composing. And then once I started connecting improvising with composing, I would then just write little ideas down. And I've always, from being really little, I've always sat at the piano and just worked out songs by ear so that I could play them and sing along myself. So I've always done that, but I never saw that I don't know why, I never saw that as a creative thing. It was just something I did for fun. And then when I started writing my own stuff, I was like, oh, well, I also really love songs. So I usually kind of sit at the piano and work on stuff. But over the past year, I've tried to take more ideas from my saxophone and my clarinet. I do find it easier to write on piano. But I'd say it's developed, over the past year, I've made a bunch of solo stuff. So it's developed so much, because in order to make solo stuff, obviously you're going to be your own rhythm, you're going to be your own like chords and everything, and it's like, oh right, I actually need to get a lot better at keeping time.
Yeah.
Because I'm my own time, and I had to be way more precise as well. So I think I would say that my process has developed, like I just feel more confident with it from having, like, so I sort of, yeah, from having had to do a lot of stuff on my own through the past year. And also just from having done it for a bit longer and having been in situations where you have to explain your music to people, I think you get a bit more, it's always hard to get clarity on it, but I think you get a little bit more used to having to zoom in on an idea and explain that idea and communicate it with people. Whereas in the past, I might have been like, oh, I have this idea, but if people don't understand what I mean with it, then I'll just drop it and just kind of move on. Whereas now I'll be like, no, we can get this. Like, this is what is this? And kind of investigate it more. So just sort of trying to pay attention more and believe in those small ideas, because they do turn into things.
It just really reminds me of when we were in Newcastle and we were doing some rehearsals going over the Archipelago ArchiFrisco stuff for the first time. I think it was for Lancaster Jazz. And I remember like some really awkward moments because it would get a bit tense, because like maybe something wasn't understood or it wasn't sounding the way it was meant to, and it'd almost be like a bit of a like someone would bark at each other. And it was so funny because most of the time it was perfect and it just worked, but it just made me laugh so much that because it was from a place of passion always, and it was so funny. Like, I don't know, it was
that always happens whenever I bring music to people, though. I don't know if it's something to do with my, like, there's something wrong. Because whenever I bring my music to people, it gets really like, what do you mean?
But I thought you were very clear, but maybe that's just me being very laid back about things, because I'd also just be like, yeah, it sounds good to me. I'm not that opinionated when it comes to creative compositional decisions, because I just feel like everyone's going to put their own little twist on things, and as long as the idea is there, it's so if something wanted to be changed, and especially with jazz where it's in that sort of music we were making that was very free anyway, it's not like, okay, we have to follow this structure or it's not going to work. It was very much like it actually doesn't really matter, because it's about the energy really than anything
that's
else.
half the battle, I think, though, is like if you're presenting music to people that's half composed, half open to improv, people are like, when am I allowed to improvise? Like, and I felt like that before as well, when people have given me music that's part improvised, part composed, you're like, you kind of need to all trust each other, that if someone goes off and does their own thing, no one's going to be like, stop it. Or if but it's hard as well, because in music like that, like, I guess there are bits of it that in order to fulfill what you wanted it to be, that it does have to be quite precise. So it's like getting that balance between it being precise where you wanted it to be and then being really loose where you wanted it to be, which is quite a lot of thinking for people playing it to do, really. So I do actually understand why sometimes, well, I'm thinking in Archipelago when I bring stuff in and it's like, it's hard sometimes. And I think as well, because I've definitely I've probably always been like it really, but never like shown it as much. But now I'm more like, I want it to be like this. And like, I will be quite like, just do it like this. Like, don't try and like, it's like, don't. Just because it's like, I think it's so easy to get swayed, and it's like then you're like, well, you need to be able to like trust in what you're making, and you don't want to have any like regrets, I think, as well, when it comes to the end where you're like, oh, I was too afraid to tell people, but I actually wanted it to be like this.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I'm lucky in Archipelago that we all can be really like, because I guess it is hard, but we can be really like direct with each other.
I like that. I think
Yeah.
that's definitely something that builds over time.
Yeah.
Resilience in sometimes accepting that your ideas aren't the best. So there's been times where I've thought something's a really good idea, and then Gemma and Laura just completely just explained why it's not, and I've been like, oh, yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I think you're right. Or there's times where I've just been like, well, that won't work, so we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and it's actually the kinder thing to do, isn't it? Because you don't want to be like, oh yeah, like, because it wastes your time, it wastes everyone's time, and you know that you can do something better as well.
Yeah,
I feel like I just sound like a really old school like jazz teacher, like the best.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, final question then is are there any barriers to your creative process currently?
Yeah, my concentration is my barrier.
Okay, I want to know more about that. Faye, come back in the room.
Okay, I put it I actually didn't mean to drift off then. I
was joking. I was joking.
You couldn't write it. No, right. So my concentration, because basically, I just think with this whole pandemic, we don't have the release of gigs, and I'm quite distracted by the fact that everything is so different right now. So on the one hand, I can be really intensely concentrated, but it's more in like bursts of, there are lots of things that have to be in place for me to concentrate, and obviously you don't have all those things all the time, and I don't even really know what those things are, which is maybe why I don't. But I've just got a space that I'm in now, actually, outside my house to work in, and it's so much better. So I think for me, it was like having a space, because I do have a room in my house where I can make noise, but it has been really hard for me to concentrate in my house. I just feel very cooped up in there, and I have to keep going outside quite a few times a day just to not feel stuck. But I mean, apart from that, I've been lucky because I've been able to get like this little Zoom recorder, and I've got a Cubase. It's a very basic one, but yeah, I think because in the past that was a barrier for me, not being able to afford equipment. So I think that's really a really big thing, actually, that I do think people forget how much it costs even to buy a microphone.
Yeah.
Because I used to find it very frustrating when I finished uni and I didn't have access to studios, and people would be like, oh, just teach yourself. And I was like, but I can't. I was like, but I've got to work to start with. Yeah. So I'm trying to work a job alongside working a creative job at that time. And then it's like, and I also can't afford these things. And then also, for whatever reasons, I'm probably not allowed to make that. I'm not allowed to build a studio in my rented house share. So I feel really lucky now, actually, that the barriers are more things like concentration, which I can do things to improve that, and like leaving the house. And also, I think just one thing that's hard is juggling a lot of different things right now. I think that makes it harder to concentrate, because I'm between quite a lot of different things, which is really good, and I'm lucky to have the work, but it does require a lot of gear shifting mentally.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I have this thing where before I sit down to work, I need it to be sorted. I need the room to be ready. Like, I need kind of to know where everything is, and then I can really just get on with stuff. That's quite tricky. But I suppose it's knowing yourself, isn't it? Because it's not the same. Like, some weeks I'm okay with there being mess around, and some weeks I'm like literally working on a dirty dinner table with like paper everywhere. But I know that I can concentrate really well if it's
Yeah.
sorted and it's nice and tidy and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
suppose it's learning to learn how you react to the changing environment
Yeah.
and how to adapt quickly.
Well, yeah, because it is a completely different environment to work in, isn't it? So it's like quite hard because you have to really trust yourself to like, because you can't be feeling it all the time. So, and it's harder to get that separation from your work because we're at home a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of people are saying it is just harder to concentrate for everyone right now, aren't they? People have just got reduced energy and things. So
Yeah.
part of me just thinks, well, maybe if you can't concentrate, sometimes maybe that's just good to stop, just take a break, and just let that be what that is.
Yeah, I've definitely found it hard going out for a walk and knowing that I'm going to see the same things and the walk is going to be very boring because there's nothing exciting for me to see. I find that quite difficult because I just think then, what's the point? And then it sort of, it doesn't help with the concentration at all.
Yeah, I've tried putting like different podcasts on when I go on a walk so that it kind of feels like I'm mentally going somewhere new.
Right, that's a really good
Even though
point. Yeah,
I'm physically going around my house again. Yeah. So yeah, that podcasts have been amazing for me actually.
Yeah, have you got any recommendations of anything in particular?
Yeah, there's one, it's called Broken Record Podcast, and it's really interesting hearing artists. Sometimes they break down their process, sometimes they just talk about how they came together as a band or how they wrote their music as a solo artist. That's a really good one. There's one called What the Fuck or WTF, in case Nigel has to bleep that. And that's why I was laughing. So that by Mark Maron, and he's a comedian and he interviews loads of different people like actors, musicians, directors, and I love that. He's just a really funny guy, and he often does like big monologues at the start of it as well, just about the world, and he's quite dry. And if you're in a bad mood, it always makes you feel better to hear somebody else who's just being really angry at the world.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I like hearing that. And are there any others? I can't think of it. There's one called How Do You Cope on 5. It's on BBC Radio. I think it's on Radio 5 maybe, on playback, and that's great. That's sort of people talking about really difficult things that have happened in their lives and how they've overcome them.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I might have to have a look into that.
I'd
What's that
recommend
called?
it, yeah.
How
It's
do...
How Do You Cope?
Right. Okay, well, that's excellent. I've got more stuff to have a listen to then. Right, fab. I think we'll wrap it up there. That's been fantastic and so nice to speak to you again.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you too. It's been ages.
Yeah, I can't wait to gig again.
I know. We will.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.